last message I expected to receive on my wedding day came 23 minutes after. I walked down the aisle alone. It wasn't from my husband. It wasn't from my mother. It wasn't from my sister. It was from my father. 6 words. Don't answer their calls. Trust me. At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. 3 days later, it changed everything. The morning of my wedding should have been chaotic in the best possible way. Hair appointments, makeup artists, nervous laughter, bridesmaids running around with coffee cups and emergency sewing kits. Instead, I spent most of it staring at my phone and trying not to cry. My wedding was scheduled for 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon at a restored lakeside estate just outside Charleston. My fiancé, Ryan, and I had spent 18 months planning it. Every detail mattered. Every flower arrangement, every table card, every song. But the thing I cared about most wasn't any of that. It was my family being there. Or at least, that's what I thought. At 10 that morning, my mother called. "Sweetheart, there's a situation." The moment she said the word situation, my stomach dropped. What happened? "It's your sister." Of course it was. It was always my sister. Olivia was 26, 3 years younger than me, and for as long as I could remember, she had occupied a special place in our family universe. Everything revolved around her. When she got accepted into college, my parents hosted a neighborhood celebration. When I got accepted into college, they mailed me a congratulations card. When she started a business that failed 6 months later, my parents invested $20,000. When I started a business that actually succeeded, they told me not to get overconfident. It wasn't that they hated me. That would have been easier to understand. They simply loved her more, and everyone knew it. "What about Olivia?" I asked. Mom sighed dramatically. "Her engagement party is today." I blinked. "What?" "You know the party she planned with Brandon's family." I sat down slowly. "Mom, my wedding is today." "I know." The fact that she said it so casually made my chest hurt. "I know that," she repeated. "But Olivia's future in-laws already flew in from California." I waited for the punchline. It never came. Instead, my mother said something I will never forget. "We've decided to attend her event first." My brain struggled to process the sentence. "Attend her event first. It's only for a few hours." "Mom, then we'll drive over." The engagement party was nearly 200 miles away. They both knew that. I knew that. Everyone knew that. There was no realistic way they could attend both. I stood up. "No." "What do you mean, no?" "I mean my wedding is not competing with Olivia's party." Mom's silence told me everything, because that's exactly what had happened. Somehow, somewhere, a choice had been made.
And I had lost. Again. "Emma," she said carefully, "please don't make this difficult." The irony nearly made me laugh. My wedding day, and somehow I was the difficult one. What about Dad? Another pause. "He's coming with us." Something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough, because my father had always been different, or at least I thought he was. Whenever Mom favoured Olivia, Dad usually stayed quiet. I spent years telling myself silence wasn't agreement. Now I wasn't so sure. "When were you planning to tell me?" "We're telling you now. 3 hours before the ceremony. 3 hours before I walked down the aisle. 3 hours before one of the most important moments of my life." That was apparently sufficient notice. I ended the call without saying goodbye. Then I sat there staring at the wall while reality settled over me. Ryan found me 20 minutes later. He didn't ask what was wrong. He already knew. My family had spent years being predictable. This was simply their most impressive performance. "They're not coming, are they?" It was about the future, about building a life where disappointment wasn't inherited. I looked at him and realised something important. The people who mattered were already here. Ryan was here. My friends were here. His family was here. The only people missing were the ones who had been making me feel unwanted for years. "I'm marrying you," I said. He smiled. "Good answer." The ceremony started at exactly 4 o'clock. The weather was perfect. The lake reflected the sunset like polished glass. The guests stood. The music began, and I walked down the aisle. Without my father, without my mother, without my sister, an entire row of reserved family seats sat empty. Everyone noticed. Nobody mentioned it. The silence was almost kind. I kept my eyes on Ryan and refused to look anywhere else. By the time I reached the altar, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to let their absence ruin this moment. I wasn't going to spend my wedding day chasing people who had already chosen someone else. The ceremony was beautiful, simple, honest, real. For 30 minutes, I forgot they existed. Then the reception started, and so did the phone calls. First Mom, then Olivia, then Mom again, then Olivia again. I ignored everyone. By 8 o'clock, there were 17 missed calls, 9 text messages, 3 voicemails, and 1 message from my father. Unlike the others, it wasn't an apology. It wasn't an excuse. It wasn't even an explanation. It simply said, "Don't answer their calls. Trust me." I stared at the screen, read it again, then again. Something felt wrong, not suspicious, urgent. My father wasn't dramatic. He wasn't impulsive. He didn't send mysterious texts, ever. I looked around the reception hall. People were dancing, laughing, celebrating. My husband was talking to his grandmother near the cake table. Everything looked normal, but suddenly it didn't feel normal. I stepped outside. The night air was cool. I called Dad, straight to voicemail. I tried again, voicemail. Again, nothing. Then a new text arrived. "Please, just wait until tomorrow." That was all. No explanation, no context. Just wait. I should have ignored him. I should have gone back inside and enjoyed my wedding. Instead, I spent the rest of the evening wondering what had happened at a party I never wanted to compete with in the first place. The answer arrived at 7:14 the next morning, and it was worse than anything I imagined. At 7:14 the next morning, my phone vibrated again. This time it wasn't my mother. It wasn't Livia. It wasn't even my father. It was a group text, and I had been added to it. The participants: my mother, my father, my sister, Olivia's fiancé Brandon, and me. There were already 23 messages. Most of them were from my mother. I scrolled upward. "What were you thinking?" She had written. "This was supposed to be about Olivia. You embarrassed her in front of everyone." I froze. Embarrassed her? I hadn't even been there. Then I saw Olivia's messages. "Why would you tell them that? You promised. You ruined everything." Then Brandon: "Your dad had no right to say that." And finally, buried in the middle of the thread, my father's message. "I'm done pretending." My heart started beating so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I scrolled back down to the newest message. Mom had just sent it. "You will not contact Emma about this. Do you understand? My name." Now I was involved. Before I could even type, another message came through. From Dad. "I already did." Silence followed. Then Olivia again. "Dad, this is unbelievable. You've always supported me." Supported her. That word again. I stood up from the edge of the bed and started pacing. Ryan stirred. "Everything okay?" he asked sleepily. "No," I said honestly. "Not even close." I opened my father's direct messages. There was a new one. "Call me now." I stepped into the hallway outside our hotel room and pressed dial. He answered on the first ring. His voice sounded different. Not panicked. Not angry. Tired. "Are you alone?" he asked. "Yes." "Good." I waited, because for the first time in my life, he sounded like someone who had something real to say. "They lied to you," he said. The words hit hard. "About what?" "About why they skipped your wedding." They said it was unavoidable. That's not. I leaned against the wall. What happened yesterday? He exhaled heavily. They announced something at the party. What? There was a pause, long enough that I knew this was the part that hurt. They told everyone they were covering the cost of Olivia's wedding next year. My eyes closed. Of course they were. And, I asked quietly, and they told everyone they couldn't attend your wedding because they were financially stretched. The hallway felt smaller. They told people they couldn't afford to attend my wedding. Yes, my chest burned. I paid for my own wedding. I know. They didn't contribute a single dollar. I know. And they told people they couldn't afford to attend. Yes, the humiliation wasn't about money. It was about narrative. They had rewritten the story. They hadn't chosen Olivia over me because they preferred her. They had chosen her because she was the better investment, and I was the sunk cost. What did you say? I asked. I corrected them. My father had always been silent, always diplomatic, always cautious. What do you mean corrected them? I told Brandon's parents that you paid for your own wedding, that you never asked us for help, that we were the ones who didn't show up. My breathing slowed. Why? Another long pause. Because sometimes truth is heavier than pride. Because I realized something when you walked down that aisle without me. I swallowed. What? That I was about to lose my daughter. Silence wrapped around us. And, I whispered, and I didn't want to spend the rest of my life pretending that was your fault. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. I had waited my entire life to hear something like that. And now that it was here, I didn't trust it. What happened after you corrected them? I asked. It got ugly. I believed that immediately. Your mother accused me of ruining Olivia's announcement. Olivia cried. Brandon's parents asked questions. A lot of questions. And it came out that your mother had encouraged the scheduling conflict. The words felt like ice water. She knew about your wedding date for 18 months. Olivia chose her engagement party date 3 weeks ago. My knees nearly buckled. So it wasn't unavoidable. No, it was deliberate. Yes, I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, because suddenly the wedding wasn't just favoritism, it was strategy. They hadn't chosen between two unavoidable events. They had created the conflict, on purpose. Why? I asked. My father's answer was soft. Because your mother believed you'd reschedule. That sentence felt like being slapped. She thought I'd move my wedding. She said you were always the flexible one, the reasonable one. Reasonable, flexible, understanding. The words that had cost me years. She thought if you really cared about family, you'd compromise. I laughed. It sounded broken. I compromised my entire life. I know, he said, and this time I believed him. What happened after that? I asked. And this time I believed him. What happened after that? I asked. Brandon's parents were furious. Why? Because they realized your mother lied about the financial situation. My pulse quickened. They thought you were paying for Olivia's wedding because you had to, because you didn't have another daughter's wedding to fund. I almost choked. They didn't know about me. They knew about you, Dad said carefully, but they didn't know you paid for your own wedding, or that we didn't attend. And when you told them, they started asking why. The word why felt powerful, dangerous, necessary. And what did Mom say? She said you were being dramatic, that you chose distance, that you didn't want us involved. My vision blurred. Did you correct that too? Yes. What did you say? I said we chose distance, not you. My heart cracked open, because that was the sentence I had needed my entire life. We chose distance, not you. Silence stretched between us. I should have said it sooner, he added quietly. Yes, I agreed. We both knew that, but I'm saying it now. I wiped my face. I hadn't even realized I was crying. What does this have to do with your text? I asked finally. He hesitated. Your mother panicked. About what? She thinks you're going to tell people. Tell them what? That she planned the conflict. That she lied about the money. That she tried to manipulate you into moving your wedding. I stood up slowly. She's afraid of being embarrassed. Yes, and she thinks I'll do that. Yes. I let out a slow breath. I don't need to. What do you mean? She already embarrassed herself. Silence again. But this time it felt different. Not fragile. Grounded. I'm not calling them, I said. Good. I'm not explaining myself. Good. I'm not defending my wedding. You shouldn't. I paused. But I am done being flexible. That was the moment something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just internally. I can't undo yesterday, my father said softly. No, I replied, but I can choose differently from here. I thought about the empty chairs, the silence, the aisle, the way I had walked without him. You already started, I said. He exhaled, almost relieved. Your mother isn't ready to admit she was wrong. She never is. But she knows she went too far. I considered that. Does she? Yes. How? She's blaming everyone except you. I almost smiled. That was the closest she ever came to accountability. What do you want me to do? I asked. For now, yes. Enjoy your honeymoon. The simplicity of it stunned me. I mean it, he continued. Don't let this become your whole story. I leaned against the wall again. What about Olivia? She's upset. She always is when something isn't about her. He didn't argue. She'll have to learn, he said. Learn what? That you're not competition. The line sat there, heavy, dark, clear. True. I hung up a few minutes later. Ryan opened the hotel room door. You look like you just finished a war, he said. Maybe I did. Are we okay? I walked toward him slowly. Yes. You sure? Yes. He studied my face. What happened? I looked at him and realized something. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was competing for love. I'm not the flexible one anymore, I said. He smiled. Good. And somehow, that felt like the real beginning. The fallout didn't wait long. By the time we landed in Santorini for our honeymoon, the whispers had already started. Not loud, not dramatic, but sharp enough to cut. My cousin texted first. Is it true Mom skipped your wedding for Olivia's party? Then my aunt. Why are people saying your parents lied about finances? Then someone I barely spoke to anymore. Are you okay? That was when I realized something important. The narrative had escaped. And once truth escapes, it doesn't ask permission before spreading. Ryan and I were sitting on the terrace of our hotel suite, the Aegean Sea glowing blue beneath the sun. I should have been blissful, newly married, free, untouched by family drama. Instead, my phone kept buzzing like a mosquito I couldn't kill. I muted it, then I turned it off entirely. Ryan watched me carefully. You don't have to fix this, he said. I know. You don't have to respond. I know. You don't have to defend yourself. I know. He leaned forward. Then why do you look like you're about to? I stared at the horizon, because that's what I had always done. Defend, explain, smooth over, take responsibility for emotional messes I didn't create. But something inside me had shifted when my father said those words. We chose distance, not you. For the first time, I wasn't scrambling to repair something. I was observing it collapse on its own. That afternoon, my father sent another message. Brandon's parents are reconsidering the wedding timeline. I read it twice. Because of the fight, I asked. Yes. What exactly happened after I hung up? There was a longer pause this time. Your mother tried to frame it as a misunderstanding. And they didn't buy it. My lips pressed into a thin line. Brandon's father asked why you weren't invited to speak at the engagement announcement. I blinked. Why would I be? Because Olivia introduced you as my sister who couldn't make it. The phrase stung. Couldn't make it. As if I hadn't been blocked. As if I had simply chosen absence. And when they asked why I couldn't make it, I told them. I closed my eyes. And what did you say? That we didn't attend your wedding. That there was a scheduling conflict created by your mother. That you didn't reschedule. And they asked why we thought you would. I almost laughed. And what did Mom say? She said you've always been adaptable. Adaptable. The polite word for invisible. And what did Brandon's father say? He said a daughter's wedding is not a rehearsal dinner. The image of my mother standing there, confronted, made something inside me quiet, not satisfied, not triumphant, just settled. The truth had spoken without me raising my voice. What happens now? I asked. Your mother is furious. Because I exposed her. No, he said carefully. Because I did. That landed differently. You chose me, I said softly. Yes. The word was simple, heavy, final. For 34 years, my father had chosen peace over confrontation, chosen quiet over conflict, chosen neutrality over fairness. Now he had chosen me. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was late. But it mattered. That evening, as Ryan and I walked through narrow white streets overlooking the sea, my phone turned back on automatically when it connected to hotel Wi-Fi. 32 new messages, most of them from Olivia. I opened one. You've made this worse. Another. You couldn't just let me have one day. Another. You always have to ruin things. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed a single reply. I didn't ruin anything. I just didn't lie. I put the phone back in my bag. Ryan stopped walking. You okay? Yes. You sure? Yes. He studied me like he was looking for cracks. There weren't any. That was the difference. Before, I would have been unraveling. Now I was steady, because I finally understood something. Being excluded had cost me less than staying would have. The next morning, the real shift happened. My father called again. This time his voice carried something new. Resignation. Brandon's parents requested a meeting, he said. With you. With all of us. And they want clarity before they proceed. Proceed with what? I already knew. The wedding. Because once trust fractures, even gold-plated families start asking questions. What does that have to do with me? I asked. They want to hear from you. I stopped walking. Ryan turned toward me. They want you to attend the meeting. I almost laughed. Why? Because they want to understand what happened. My instinct was to refuse, to protect myself, to avoid another room where I was treated like an afterthought. But this time, something felt different. This wasn't about competing. It was about clarity. I won't defend myself, I said. You won't have to, Dad replied. They're asking for transparency. Transparency. Another word my family had never been comfortable with. Fine, I said. When? Next week. We returned home 3 days later. The meeting was scheduled at Brandon's parents' house. Large, polished, controlled. The kind of house where reputation lives in the walls. When I walked in, everyone was already seated. Mum sat stiffly on the edge of a cream sofa, Olivia beside her, Dad across from them, Brandon's parents facing the group, and one empty chair, mine. I sat down calmly, no speech prepared, no performance rehearsed. Brandon's father spoke first. We value honesty, he said evenly, and we were told there were misunderstandings. Mum opened her mouth. He held up his hand. I'd like to hear from Emma. I looked at him, then at my sister, then at my mother, then at my father. I got married 2 weeks ago, I said simply. My family chose not to attend. Why? He asked. Because my sister scheduled her engagement party the same day. Olivia shifted in her seat. It wasn't intentional, she said quickly. I didn't look at her. Was it? Brandon's father asked calmly. Silence. Then Mom spoke. We assumed Emma would reschedule. Why? He asked again. The word hung heavy, because that was the question that mattered. Why? Mom hesitated. She's always been flexible. I met Brandon's father's eyes. I wasn't flexible, I said quietly. I was accommodating. There's a difference. Accommodating people get erased slowly. Flexible people bend. I had bent for years, until I didn't. And you paid for your own wedding? He asked. Yes. And your parents did not attend? No. The room went quiet. Not tense, just aware. Mom tried one last angle. We didn't think she'd make such a big deal about it. I almost smiled. I didn't. I simply proceeded. Brandon's mother nodded slowly. Thank you for clarifying. That was it. No explosion, no shouting, just truth. After the meeting, as everyone stood, Olivia grabbed my arm. You've changed, she said. Yes. You used to try harder. No, I corrected gently. I used to try alone. She didn't have an answer for that, because she knew it was true. That night, my father came to our house, alone. He stood in our doorway, looking smaller somehow. Not weak, just humbled. I can't fix the past, he said. No, but I can show up now. I studied him carefully. Then show up, I said. He nodded. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was movement. And movement is what saves families. The following weeks were quiet. No dramatic reconciliation. No tearful apologies. Just boundaries. Clear, firm, non-negotiable. Olivia's wedding plans moved forward. My mother stopped calling daily. My father visited once a week. Slowly, deliberately, because now he understood something he hadn't before. Family is not automatic. Family is chosen. And sometimes, it has to be chosen again. The quiet that followed wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It didn't come with apologies wrapped in tears, or family dinners where everyone suddenly learned emotional literacy. It came with distance, intentional distance. My father began coming over on Sundays. At first he stayed for coffee, then lunch, then he started helping. Ryan fixed things around the house, small things that didn't need fixing. It wasn't about the sink or the fence. It was about showing up without being asked. My mother didn't come. She sent one text 3 weeks after the meeting. I hope you're happy. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't kind. It was defensive. I didn't answer. Not because I was punishing her, because I was done performing emotional labour. Olivia's wedding date was announced 2 months later. Different venue, different season, different tone. And this time I wasn't invited first. I found out through a family group email. Not a call, not a conversation, just a formal announcement. For a moment, the old instinct kicked in. The urge to react, to analyse, to interpret tone, to wonder what it meant. Then I remembered something. Peace doesn't ask questions that don't change outcomes. I closed the email. Ryan looked at me from across the kitchen. You okay? Yes. You sure? Yes. And I was, because for the first time in my life, my emotional state wasn't tied to their decisions. A week later, my father called again. Your mother wants to talk, he said. She's had decades, I replied. She knows that. I sighed. What does she want? She says she's ready to apologise. I paused. The word apology felt heavy, not because I didn't want it, because I didn't trust it. Does she understand what she's apologising for? She thinks so. That's not the same. Silence. She's struggling, he added quietly. I know. You don't sound angry. I'm not. That surprised him. Then what are you? I looked out the window at the late afternoon light hitting our backyard. Done chasing. There was a difference between anger and exhaustion. I wasn't furious anymore. I was finished negotiating for basic respect. That night, my mother showed up at our house. No pearls, no performance, no dramatic entrance. She stood awkwardly in our living room, like a guest unsure of the rules. Ryan gave us space. For a few moments, we just looked at each other. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it, she said finally. Go through with what? Your wedding. I let that settle. You didn't think I'd marry the man I've been with for 5 years. She hesitated. I thought you'd choose family first. I did, I said calmly. I chose the one I was building. That hit her hard. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said. I didn't respond, because intent and impact are not the same thing. I thought you'd understand, she continued. I did understand, I said quietly. I understood that I was optional. Her face changed, not defensively, but painfully. I never meant for you to feel that way. I didn't feel that way, I corrected gently. I was treated that way. That distinction matters. One is perception, the other is behaviour. She sat down slowly. I was afraid, she she admitted. Of what? That you'd leave us. I stared at her. You pushed me out of my own wedding. I thought you'd reschedule. For Olivia? Yes. The honesty was brutal. Why? Because you always have. And there it was. The real reason. Not preference. Not love. Expectation. I had trained them to expect sacrifice. I had taught them that I would move, adjust, bend, accommodate. And when I stopped, it felt like betrayal. Not because I changed, because they relied on me not changing. I'm not flexible anymore, I said. She nodded slowly. I see that. Do you? Yes. We sat in silence. Not hostile, just aware. What does family really cost? She asked quietly. The question surprised me, not because she asked it, because she was finally asking the right one. It costs accountability, I said. It costs honesty. It costs showing up. And it costs giving up the version of me you preferred. Her eyes filled with something that looked like regret. I don't know how to do that overnight. You don't have to, I replied. You just have to stop pretending. She looked around our living room, at the framed wedding photo on the wall, Ryan and I smiling under string lights, no empty chairs in the background. I watched the video, she said softly. You did? Yes. What did you think? She swallowed. I thought you looked happy. I smiled faintly. I was. That was the part that hurt her most. That I didn't collapse. That I didn't beg. That I didn't crumble without them. I didn't realize you didn't need us to succeed, she said. I met her eyes. I never needed you to succeed. I needed you to show up. That silence felt different. Not fragile. Not tense. Just honest. I can't promise I'll be perfect, she said. I'm not asking for perfect. What are you asking for? Consistency. Because love that only appears when it's convenient is not love. It's access. She stood up slowly. I'll try. That was the first time she had ever said that without defensiveness. Not I did my best. Not you're overreacting. Not that's not fair. Just, I'll try. It wasn't a grand reconciliation. It wasn't a cinematic hug. It was the beginning of something unfamiliar. Mutual effort. Months passed. Olivia's wedding approached. This time, I received a direct invitation. Handwritten note inside. I hope you'll come. No pressure. No assumptions. I showed up. Not because I had forgotten, but because I had decided something important. Boundaries don't mean exile. They mean clarity. When I arrived, my father was waiting at the entrance. He hugged me first. Not performative. Not public. Just real. My mother followed. Nervous. Careful. Present. Olivia walked down the aisle later that afternoon, and when she reached the altar, she looked at me. Not as competition. Not as comparison. But as witness. That was new. After the ceremony, my mother stood beside me during photos. Not as the centre, just as part of it. Family looked different. Not perfect. Not healed overnight. But honest. And that's what it cost. Honesty. Accountability. Boundaries. And the willingness to let go of roles that no longer served anyone. People think revenge is loud. It's not. The most powerful revenge is growth. The most powerful shift is when you stop proving your worth and start living it. My family chose my sister's party over my wedding, but my father's text changed everything. Don't answer their calls. Trust me. I did. And for the first time in my life, trust paid off.